For the Cambridge Film Trust has a group of young people who are really interested in learning about film criticism and the art of reviewing films. So firstly, sticking with Booksmart, for the Youth Lab members who are about to watch that, can you suggest things they should be looking out for, or particular elements of the film that you think might be of interest when reviewing it?
That's a good question. I think I always start looking at all the different departments and are they doing their job properly, and that applies to any film. So great to keep an ear out for the score, things you might not otherwise mention that might, pass you by, that you might not notice. Obviously the performances, the direction, the editing, what does it set out to do, does it do it properly? But in the terms of Booksmart, I think if you look at the dialogue, that's really interesting, and also the dynamic between all the different characters is really interesting to observe, and the way that different characters behave differently with each other. The script is quite nuanced in that respect, as are the performances. So I think it's a very, very character-driven film for all its comedy and its bits of action. And I think keeping a close eye on that and how the characters are coloured by their language, I think, is a really important part of it.
Great, thank you. And for you and your experiences and your sort of story, so you were, if I'm right, the first woman editor of a UK dance magazine, right, and then moved into film writing. Can you kind of share your sort of memories and experiences of moving into the world of film writing, and kind of any main big lessons that you might have learned that you think would be useful to share?
Well, when I started out, it was even harder than it is now for women to get into the game, especially those who didn't study film. I studied English and I was an experienced journalist, as you say, editing dance music magazines, and then went to women's journalism. But the film criticism world felt like a bit of a closed shop then. So I really had to knock on the door quite loudly to get let in. And I sort of went sideways in some ways, doing day shifts and subbing in places that I eventually then persuaded that I should write about film for them. So it's about making contacts and getting to know people. That's definitely really important, as well as being a well-trained journalist and a talented journalist. And as being a freelancer, there's a lot of lessons that you learn, which is being super efficient, delivering everything early, preferably, and just being really dedicated to your job and putting the hours in early on in your career. I worked really, really, really hard to get where I am now.
Would you suggest solely writing as by means of film reviews, or do you think, say, setting up a podcast or interviewing people, or is there a sort of oral side of things that you think would complement the written reviewing as well?
Well, some people like me combine both, and some people just do broadcast, and that writing isn't their skill. So I think it depends what you feel your strengths are. But I think if you can do both, then it's great to start off with the discipline of writing, because that helps you to hone your skills. Writing scripts for broadcast or just chatting in broadcast is quite different. So I think by writing film reviews really does help you structure your criticism. And so if you study critics that you enjoy and look at how they structure their writing, I think that's a really great place to start.
Do you have a set, when you're reviewing a film, do you have a set sort of pattern or checklist that you like to use personally? Or are there any sort of set things that you aim to achieve in every review? Or is that just not a possibility? Does it depend on the film?
I think there used to be, and generally the list would be partly to do with the house style of the magazine or the paper in question, because everyone has different requirements. But I do it so instinctively now, because I've been doing it for so long, it just sort of happens, I'm happy to say. But it's in there somewhere, but I don't physically sit down and go tick. But I mean, thinking back, certainly an engaging opening line would be really important, but nothing too showy. Some honesty, I think one of the issues a lot of people have when they're starting out is writing in a way that seems a little bit too formal. But I think for most publications, to keep it more conversational, that's what people enjoy reading, and that's how you engage people. So think about, how would you sum this up to your friend, first line, to grab their attention? Who's it starring, what genre is it, why should we care? why should we care what this film is, you know? And then obviously you have to hit all the main beats of you know, saying who's directed it, who's in it. Any particularly vivid passages of dialogue that you can quote can be really helpful to try and paint a picture, and also describing, you know, things visually and getting a sense of the pace, I think. And sometimes you can reflect that in the very style of your writing. So quite fun.
Great. And just one more question on the interviewing side of things, because some members of the Youth Lab might be interviewing, you know, directors or producers of films as part of their work with the Cambridge Film Trust. And any tips really for people who, you know, might be quite nervous, you know, doing their first interviews, and just how to, I mean, I'm assuming research is a good place to start, but you know, any other tips?
Yeah, research is great, and you know, we now have the wonders of social media. So if your subject is active on social media, that's a great place to go. But also take a look at interviews they've done before. Have a look at what they're strong at. Have a look at what they've said a million times. Don't ask the obvious question. Try to think of something a little bit different. Something that will get a different quote from them that maybe they haven't said before. That's a tricky one if you're doing someone very seasoned. But I'm sure that, you know, the benefit of these interviews that you're talking about is that everyone doing them will be feeling really generous and kind. So there's no need to be nervous. And the more you do them, the less nervous you get. And obviously, I haven't been nervous for a very long time, but you know, it took me a while because, you know, the stakes can be high when you're talking to an A-lister. So yeah, keep doing it, keep practicing, enjoy it, be honest as much as you can be. And listen. Don't just read a bunch of questions and not listen to the answer. Take the interview in a nice organic direction.